It's not about what you have, it's about who you have. It's not about where you live, it's about how you live. And it's not about what you do, it's about why you do it. Welcome to the Momentasize podcast. Today I've got a kind of an insane guest. It's a guest that you guys have spent more time with than you probably would want. It's me, myself, and all of my personalities. It is a solo podcast today, and because we're doing a solo podcast, what I really want to talk about is some of the key things. The key thing if you want to become a real estate developer. So we're going to dive in this podcast and just touch on the three things that you have to master if you want to be a real estate developer. The three things that we really focus on, and when we're making our projects and deciding whether we're going to go after an opportunity that we're paying attention to. So those three things are: number one, you have to be able to master the cost of your project, right? You have to understand how to underwrite it, the finances. You have to understand what the inputs are going to be, your development cost, and be able to understand your debt structure, all of it, your construction costs. So you have to be able to master the numbers, both the development cost numbers, doing a valuation, meaning looking forward and doing a pro forma for what it's going to look like, what your yearly profits are going to look like, what your 5 years is going to look like, a valuation of how your debt structure is going to be. So you have to be able to do a full forecast valuation, and then you have to really be able to dive in on the construction budget and the numbers, right? When you're in the ground up game, one of the biggest risks you have is what is it actually going to cost to bring this project to life? And one of the competitive advantages you could have as a real estate developer is really becoming an expert in the construction side of it. That's what we have. Like, I know the numbers, the construction numbers, what it's going to cost to build better than almost anyone. I know the numbers and what it's going to cost to build so well, and that gives us a competitive edge because I'm in it every day. We're doing it all the time. So I know if we get a bid for excavation, I know what's high and what's low. And I also know what might be low but have scope gaps because we're doing it, we're actively in it. And I think that there's a ton of really, really good real estate developers who maybe don't have the nitty-gritty down to each line item construction knowledge. And so if you were bridging the gap right now and you're like, hey, I want to become a real estate developer, I know I have a lot of skills I need to build, I would go the route of general contractor, become an expert at those numbers, because you're going to be at such an advantage when you're ready to take the leap over to real estate developer. So knowing those construction numbers are huge, right? Number one, financials, construction numbers, key, really key. And the best way to do that is just to get in there down and dirty and learn. Right? You got to get in there, get down and dirty and learn. I remember when Connor, my best friend, he came on to the team, the first thing we did was he was going to get like a tsunami wave of numbers, because I said, for your role and where you're going to go, if you understand the numbers better than anyone, meaning what it costs, the numbers, what it costs on a per square foot basis, what it costs on a per yard basis, what it costs to bring these projects to life on a per unit basis. If you know those numbers better than anyone else, you're going to have a strong advantage on the business side of building, right? Because that's really what we're on. We're on the business side of building. We're not out there as a subcontractor. We're not doing the siding or swinging the hammers. It's just, that's not our model. We're doing the business component of bringing buildings to life. And so that was the first thing, that number. He mastered those first. Then number two, as a real estate developer, the second thing you have to really focus in and master, and it's tied together, of course they all are, is the debt structure. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can deal with the debt and the financing of projects. And if you're going to do a multifamily project, right, the debt structure, there's, again, a bunch of packages and a bunch of different ways you can do debt. But the way we typically do it is we go off of either the 5 or the 10-year treasury. So whatever that rate is at the time, with a spread. The bank, of course, the bank that underwrites it is going to want a spread. So they're going to want a spread over that treasury. And there's also a bunch of other products out there. There's, for example, insurance companies that can offer great rates once the building's done. There's also just purely construction loans, so hard money loans, which we do on our single family stuff. We do that a lot more. I mean, that you're going to pay a lot more, be an interest only, let's say 1 to 2 year period interest only loan where you're going to pay probably a 10 to 12% plus an origination fee, right? So the debt and how you structure the debt is super, super important. And so starting to get familiar with your different options, the different mechanisms you can use is key. One of the things that right now in the current market is actually creating a lot of issues for developers is the situation where they didn't predict in their pro formas, meaning what the future is going to look like. Because as a real estate developer, you're really making future bets on things, right? So when a lot of these projects got started, interest rates were at 3, 4, 5%. 5, 6%, right? So they probably in their underwriting underwrote at a 5 or 6% to be conservative, or a 4% if they weren't being too conservative from a debt side. Well, the reality is they took a construction loan, right, which is a higher interest, usually like it could be prime plus whatever they want on top of it. That'd be your standard. They go to Wall Street prime, whatever the prime rate is, plus again a spread for construction. And then they don't actually have permanent debt locked in until they get a 90-day trailing of occupancy. So meaning that you get the building built, fully occupied, or to 85% occupancy, depending on what bank you're working with. And then you need to have 90 days of that still, and then you can get your permanent debt. So if you underwrote, the problem here is if you underwrote a permanent debt, if you're going for construction to then doing a refinance at the finish, if you underwrote at your permanent debt, if you underwrote that debt to be at, let's say 5%, and you just finished your project, and now today the actual interest rates are more like 7, 7.5, 6.5. Well, those are huge increases. It might only sound like 1 or 2%, but 1% from between 5 and 6%, that's 25%. We'll double check my math on this, but I'm pretty sure that's a 25% increase in the cost of capital, or maybe even more, right? So it's huge. Those are huge increases in the cost of capital or the debt that you have to deal with on a project. So you have to really underwrite those models and look at how can we properly protect against the debt. And we'll dive into what the three example projects of where we're at and what's happened. But debt is key and really, really important. And you want to protect against that and understand those models. That's something you need to master as you become a real estate developer. And then the third one, the third prediction, the third, call it future bet you're making, especially in regards to, well, there's the two future bets, right? It's rents or comps, I should say, rents or sales comps. So if you're buying a piece of land and build it from the ground up to sell, then you're going to go off sales comps. And then if you're going to be doing it to rent, you're going off rent comps. There's benefits of both. If you're doing the sale one, what's great is you can go and pull comps on Zillow on a half-mile radius, and you can understand, hey, in the last 6 to 12 months, 6 months is what appraisers use, what's sold in this area. And you can get a great comp, and you can understand, hey, in the future, based on those 3 comps, I think it's going to sell for X, right? The thing about sales comps is that if somebody decides to fire sale, and in that neighborhood, the values could very quickly go down. Now, that doesn't always happen, but it could. It could, right? So sales comps do have sometimes outliers that come in. Rent is very similar to sales comps. You'd look at the whole market, what are things renting for? But rent's a little bit less volatile, I would say, or has less risk than the sales, in my opinion, because if you think about rent, it's more sticky. Usually leases are what, 6 to 12 months. So it's easier to predict what future rents are going to be, in my opinion, than future sales comps. Because somebody could sell something and really lower your comps, right? Wholesale it, really lower your comps. Where rents, you're typically dealing with, unless there's a huge oversupply, which there's a lag to building it. It's stickier, 6 to 12 month leases. So your average lease is 12 months. And so it's easier to predict what the future rents are going to be. But you still need to master those and be conservative. You can't go and predict that 2 years from now you're going to have these huge rent increases and then in your pro forma hope for these really high rent increases, and your reality starts to sink much lower. So, you're making a bet on those three things. So you need to master those three things and then look at those from a scenario side. So master your valuation, your financials, your construction budget. Understand what your debt's going to look like and which approach you're going to take, and then make a prediction on your future comps, whether that's sales or rent. That's all going to go into a model, and you're going to run, what we do is we run scenarios. So we say pessimistically, meaning worst case, stress test this, worst case, what does this picture look like? Are we okay with this picture? If the answer is yes there and we're okay, and like there's some, like maybe we're losing some money or we're breaking even, but it's like that's really worst case and like everything has to go wrong for that to happen, and we're still okay with that picture, all right, that's a pretty good step. Then we run a realistic scenario. So we run like realistically, based on the data that we know, what do we think is going to happen realistically? Do we like that picture? And then optimistically, hey, if we do see those rent growths we think about, or if we do come under budget, or if interest rates are lower, or these different things, optimistically, what's the optimistic picture? And you look at all three of those models and you say, hey, where are we at? How good am I? First and foremost, like how good am I? Because anyone can make a deal work on a spreadsheet, right? You have to pull the emotions out and go pure factual numbers, because you can definitely do that. And the last thing you want to do is overpromise and underperform on your model. Like that's a quick way to try real estate development and never come back again, right? And so this is a get rich slow game. You have to be conservative and smart. You can also make every deal not work, right? If you're being too conservative, too pessimistic, and you're not sharpening the saw, you could also do no deals. So you do have to really be able to look at that and make quality, good inputs, because that's the only way you can build a good model out on it. So, we look at all three of those scenarios and we see, hey, how does it go? What happened here, right? And are we okay with each one of those? So that's how we structure, that's how we look at those valuations. And now let's go to case study. So we talked about how we do it, those three things to master. And then let's go to the actualization. Like we made bets on certain projects. First large project I put together was an 84 unit apartment deal. We made bets on it and we'll case study what it looked like. So the first bet from a construction side, we're good on the construction side, the actual vertical construction side, but there was one mistake made and it forced us to go over budget. We're probably 10% over budget or 5% over budget on that. And the mistake was that my first project I put together there, I didn't account for the amount of interest carry. This was a development cost input, right? Construction cost, like I told you guys, I was like, I can rock this, I can make this happen. But the interest carry, the carry of the loan as you're paying the interest during the construction, I was way soft on that. So that cost us money, and it was a lesson, right? We had to actually bring some more money, and you don't want to be in that situation. So learn from me, pad that up. We had a contingency, so we used that to tap into, but still, that was the first thing to master. That was a lesson there. Overall, still really happy with the project. We hit our construction numbers. So we built the product for a really good competitive price. The interest carry was just one thing we missed on the model. So you learn that from me now. You don't have to have that same lesson. Then let's look at the debt. So the debt structure, if we were to have been in a situation that a lot of real estate developers are in right now, then the challenge would have been that we were trying to get permanent debt, and we'd be at 7%, 7.25%, 6.5%, high sixes if we're lucky. And that would be a whole different cash flow picture. It'd be a cash in. We'd have to bring more cash in, and the project wouldn't be cash flowing for us, right? So luckily we could see the turbulence coming, and with great mentorship and great advice and just great decision making from, I'm not taking credit for that decision making, but for just the great it ended up being a good play. We decided to not take the risk, and we locked that interest rate in at a very good interest rate that protects us, cash flows us. So we did, rather than doing a construction loan and then get your permanent finance, we did a construction to permanent, where we locked in a rate for the construction period plus another 10 years, amortized over 30 years. So the loan payment is amortized over 30 years with a 10-year balloon. We did that over the 10-year treasury, and we were able to lock that in. So the debt was protected. We had in our pro forma promised one number, and we in our pro forma underwrote 6%, and we got debt at 5.35%. So we right there alone, we were okay having debt at 6%, and we got 5.35. Boom, that's a win. We won on that one. I felt very happy to win on that one. And then rents. So the next future bet was on rents. So we were really conservative on the rents, and we're very blessed to be able to be above what we pro formed. And our absorption, if you look at the market or hear a lot of news like things are going to crash, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I'll give you some real data. Like, we're doing it. We had 84 units finished December 1st of 2020. We're in 2024, 2023, of 2023, finished in 2023. Shows you where my brain is. In 2023, and the plan at 84 units for us was to absorb by end of August of 2024. We wanted to be absorbed 9 months, whatever that is. I think that's 9 or 10 months, 9 months. And right now, as of today, we are at 74% occupied, and we're hitting rents above. So that picture, we got very blessed. I feel so lucky to be able to have the first large project start to unfold that way. And we'll see, we're end of July, one more week in July, and then into August. I'm really hoping that we can push another 10% there, get to like 85, 90%. That would be a good celebration for us there. So that case study bagged it. The next one is the 24 unit that we did. Very similar thing. On the budget side, we crushed it. We built that thing like for such a good, strong, quality, competitive price. Super happy on that. Just crushed that piece of it because we did it in-house. Then the debt side, similar thing. We decided to make the same play. And so we were good there. We had underwrote that as 6% interest, and we came at 5.8. Again, very nice situation when you plan for one thing and you're already under it. Boom, that within itself is going to help out with whatever cash flows you have, right? Because your debt is just in a better position. And then rents, right now we're looking at what our actual rents are going to be. We started marketing that July 1st of this year. We're at 21% as of the last update. And 5 units rented 21% as of the last update. And that one we had pro forma'd the rents, and we're about $30 under what we had pro forma'd. So we had pro forma'd $1,650, and we're averaging $1,620, right in that range. And that hasn't finished out yet, right? But our absorption for that, we're hoping for about 4 months, and we're on pace for that. It's heading on pace. Like, things aren't falling apart like the news wants you to see, right? It's tightening, it's harder. Like, rents are flattening, but if you're making good investment decisions, I'm giving you guys play-by-play what's happening. Now, the last case study, and then we'll close this out, is a fourplex. And so this one isn't as sexy. We didn't actually do so good on it. So we didn't get permanent debt. So this one we took a gamble, and we knew we were taking a gamble. So this one we didn't get permanent debt up front. We got a hard money loan to go vertical on it. Bought the land in cash, then we got a hard money loan to go vertical on it. And we had an option when we go for permanent debt to either bring a bunch of cash in, right? Bunch of cash in to close, or we could sell it, which we're not in the game of selling those necessarily, right? And so we had a decision to make. Or the third thing, which we ended up doing, is we got a short-term bridge loan, which is an interest-only loan and pushes us out for another year to see how interest rates are going to be in 2025. And so that one, a lot more stress, a lot more turbulence, not as good of a move, right? We just finished it up. We built it for a gangbuster price again, but that would be an example of the stresses. Now, on a fourplex, it's not as stressful. If you had that on an 84 unit, which is happening to some people, it's very stressful, right? Because as units scaled, so too the numbers behind it. And so that's one where we didn't protect against the downside, and now we're dealing with that in the current moment. So we kicked the can down the road, if you would say, to give ourselves some breathing room. And then we have 12 months to decide whether or not we're going to, be able to bring the cash in, get permanent debt on it, or what we're going to do, right? We'll see what interest rates come in, but that's a lot more risky play. So you can see different case studies, different decision making leads to a different feel and different stress. On those rents, we're going to find out what the rents come in at. We just finished those, so I'll keep you guys updated on how the rents go. It's nice. It's just 4 units, and they're the best units in this area. I mean, they're beautiful units. I think they're going to rent great, but I wanted to show you guys a picture of the different decision making and then what happens with those different levers you pull and the different stresses that come with those. So, again, to wrap this up, the 3 things that you need to master in becoming a real estate developer is 1, the finances, both the pro formas and your construction numbers. Your competitive edge is going to be, if you know those construction numbers better than anyone else, you're going to have a strong competitive edge, 100% through and through. 2, you got to master the debt and the different debt options you have. And then 3, we have to master what we believe the end product's going to either sell or rent for. So, it's definitely, it sounds maybe, I don't know if it sounds simple or intimidating, but like anything, you have to get the work done. I think it's simple. It takes street smarts. It's not this crazy thing. So just get in the market, study it. If you want to provide if you're new and you want to provide a ton of value to somebody, if you know the data and the information better than anybody else, you're going to have a huge competitive advantage. And if you're interested in learning more about the real estate development game, construction game at all, just hit us up. We're working on a bunch of different things that a community that we're going to launch 30 days. Yeah. We think 30 days or so, community. They'll have free features. They'll have paid features as well, but you can get in that community with us, and we're just trying to create a community of people who are obsessed with the ground up game, just like we are, right? Buying land and building from the ground up. So if you're interested, hit us up. We're right now we're doing wait lists for those things, for that community, building it up. Yeah, anyone that's interested, we're building it up. Again, it'll be free components for the community, and of course, there'll be paid pieces too. But if you guys are interested, hit us up. And then, I hope you guys have a phenomenal week. And with that, we will see you on the next one, baby.